My own mother abandoned me at the airport when I was just 15, all to enjoy a luxurious vacation with her new husband and his kids. You can figure it out, she shrugged. I did, by calling my estranged father, who arrived in a private jet. When she got back, she found my room empty and a legal notice waiting. My name's Rowan Marks. I'm 34 now, but the day this story begins, I was 15, just a skinny, quiet kid with a crooked smile and a habit of pulling my sleeves over my hands when I was nervous. We lived in a modest townhouse just outside Richmond, Virginia, in a neighborhood where everyone knew each other's business but pretended not to. Growing up, it was just me and my mom, Deborah. She liked to say we were a team, that everything she did was for us. She worked long hours as an interior decorator, always hustling from one client to the next, pulling 16-hour days and coming home with fabric swatches and paint samples stuck to her purse. She'd kick off her heels at the door, pour herself a glass of cheap wine, and collapse on the couch like she'd just run a marathon. "You and me against the world, kid," she'd say, tossing me a tired smile, like that made up for the fact that dinner was usually cereal or takeout. I used to believe her. Everything started to change the day she met Richard Caldwell. It was like flipping a switch. One day she was complaining about how all her clients were picky and cheap, and the next she was practically glowing, gushing about this new sophisticated guy who'd hired her to redo his vacation home in Cape May. She'd get all dressed up for meetings, spend hours curling her hair, and buy perfume that cost more than our electricity bill. I met him once, just once, before everything spiraled. He pulled up in a black Mercedes and stepped out like he'd walked off a movie set. Expensive watch, leather shoes, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You must be the young man of the house," he said, giving me that patronizing head tilt adults use when they don't really care who you are. "I'm Richard." I nodded. Didn't shake his hand. Something about him felt off, even then. Mom was practically floating when he left. "Isn't he amazing?" she said, cheeks flushed, like she was 16 again. I didn't say anything. Just went back to my room. Over the next few months, she started spending more and more time with him. First it was weekends. Then entire weeks. She'd come back with shopping bags I knew we couldn't afford. Makeup, designer shoes, even a new phone. When I asked her about the bills, she'd wave me off. "Richard's helping out," she'd say. "He wants to support us." Us. But it never felt like it was about us. Eventually, she started talking about his kids, Aubrey and Nolan. Preppy little things who went to some fancy boarding school in Connecticut. She'd show me pictures of them on her phone, matching outfits, beach vacations, birthday parties with white tents and live music. I started to feel like an outsider in my own life. Then came the trip. It was the first week of July. School had just let out, and Mom burst through the front door one evening, practically glowing. "Pack your bags," she said, tossing her purse on the kitchen table. "We're going to Santorini." I blinked at her. "Wait, what?" "It's a family vacation," she said, beaming. "Richard's idea. He booked this gorgeous villa overlooking the water. It's got a private pool, a chef, everything. It's going to be so good for us." "Us as in? You, me, Richard, and his kids?" "Exactly," she said, already pulling up pictures of the place on her phone. "You'll love it. It'll be a fresh start. You and Nolan can bond." I wasn't excited. Something in my gut twisted. I didn't like the idea of being shoved into a fake little family I hadn't asked for. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and went to my room, trying to pretend I wasn't already dreading it. The day of the trip came fast. She was bouncing around the house like a teenager, throwing clothes into her suitcase, humming to herself, practically glowing. She bought me a new suitcase, sleek, navy blue, with shiny zippers and wheels that actually worked. Said I needed to look more put together. We drove up to JFK, the car packed to the roof. I sat in the back seat while she and Richard laughed in the front, sipping iced coffees and talking about the weather in Greece like I wasn't even there. I kept staring out the window, my stomach in knots. The airport was chaos, people everywhere, announcements blaring, the smell of pretzels and perfume and stress hanging in the air. We got in line at the check-in counter, and that's when it happened. Richard turned to Mom and said, "Deborah, we should be in the first-class line." She looked at him, then at me. And something shifted in her face, just a flicker, like a thought she'd been avoiding finally caught up with her. "Rowan," she said, placing a hand on my arm, "can I talk to you for a second?" We stepped aside near a vending machine. I remember the hum of it, the way a man next to us was struggling to get his change back. She looked me dead in the eye. "You're not coming." I stared at her, thinking I must have misheard. "What?" "You're not coming on the trip," she said, softer this time. It's better if it's the four of us." Just for this time. Richard thinks it'll help the kids adjust. I laughed, actually laughed, because it was so absurd. You're dumping me at the airport? Don't be dramatic, she snapped, eyes darting around. You're not a baby. You can figure it out. Figure what out, Mom? Where am I supposed to go? What the HLL am I supposed to do? You've got your phone. There's people you can call. Who? You cut everyone off. I don't even know Dad's number anymore. She hesitated. For a second, I thought she'd change her mind. But then she shrugged. I'm sorry, Rowan. This is just how it has to be. And just like that, she turned and walked away. I didn't chase her. I couldn't even move. I stood there, clutching the handle of that stupid new suitcase, watching her join Richard and the other kids at the check-in counter. Laughing. Smiling. Like I didn't exist. I sat on a bench near the departures board and just stared at nothing for a long time. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even think. I just felt hollow. Eventually, I pulled out my phone. Scrolled through every contact I had, classmates, old neighbors, even our dentist's office. No one. No one except one name at the very bottom of my list. Bryce Marks. My father. The man I hadn't spoken to in 6 years. I didn't even know if it was still his number. I just tapped it and prayed. The phone rang once. Twice. Then a low voice answered. Hello? I froze. Dad? Silence. Then, Rowan? My voice cracked. She left me. Where are you? JFK Terminal 4. Stay where you are. I'm sending the plane. I didn't understand what he meant. I thought he was just coming to pick me up. But he wasn't. He was sending his jet. I honestly thought I'd misheard him. Wait. What do you mean, you're sending the plane? I mean exactly that, he said, calm as ever. Stay where you are. Someone will come find you. I'll see you in a few hours. Then he hung up. I sat there staring at my phone like it might start explaining things to me. I hadn't spoken to this man in years, hadn't seen his face since elementary school, and now he was sending a damn jet? It didn't feel real. Nothing did. My mother had just walked off like I was an extra in her life she forgot to write a scene for, and now my estranged father was swooping in like some kind of movie character. Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe I was losing it. But about 45 minutes later, a tall man in a charcoal suit approached me with a clipboard and a kind but stiff expression. Mr. Marks? I blinked. Yeah. I'm Stephen, from Mr. Bryce Marks' office. We're ready for you. I must have looked like an a-hole just staring at him. You'll be flying out of the private terminal. We have a car waiting outside. I grabbed my suitcase and followed him through the crowds like I was in a daze. People rushed past us with boarding passes and carry-ons, but I was floating in some surreal bubble, like none of it was really happening. The car they brought was black, spotless, and the kind of vehicle that smelled like money. I sat in the back, still clutching my phone like a lifeline while we drove to another side of JFK I didn't even know existed. Private terminal. Gated access. Uniformed staff greeting me by name. And then there it was. A sleek Gulfstream G650, just sitting there on the tarmac like it belonged in a magazine. Jesus Christ, I muttered. Stephen just gave a small smile. Welcome back to the family. I didn't know what that meant. The flight was smooth, too quiet almost. I kept expecting someone to tell me there'd been a mistake, that I needed to get off, that this wasn't for me. But no one did. They served me food on actual plates, not plastic trays. The flight attendant called me Mr. Marks every time she spoke to me. By the time we landed in Aspen, the sun was low in the sky, and everything outside the window looked golden and perfect, like a postcard come to life. And then I saw him. My father. Standing on the tarmac in a dark coat, hands in his pockets, his hair mostly gray now but still thick. He looked older than I remembered, but not tired. He looked grounded. Solid. He looked like someone who knew what he was doing. I stepped off the plane and just froze. He walked toward me slowly, and for a second, neither of us said a word. Then he opened his arms. I didn't even think. I just walked into them. He held me tight, and I realized I'd forgotten what it felt like to be held like that, not just hugged, but held, like someone was actually trying to keep the broken pieces from falling apart. I'm so sorry, he said into my hair. That's when I finally started crying. We didn't talk much in the car. He let me sit in silence, my head spinning, my eyes puffy. He just kept his hand on my shoulder the whole way to his house, a quiet, gorgeous place up in the hills with wide windows and warm lights that spilled across the snow-covered lawn. When we got inside, a woman came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She was beautiful in that soft, understated way, no makeup, curly hair tied up in a loose bun, a smudge of flour on her sweater. She had kind eyes. "You must be Rowan," she said, walking up to me gently. "I'm Alyssa." I nodded, awkward. "Hi." She smiled like she could tell I was holding back a storm. "I made dinner. You're probably starving." And I was. God, I was. I hadn't realized it until then, but I was hollow inside, emotionally and physically. She led me to the kitchen, and the smell of roast chicken and baked potatoes nearly brought me to tears again. There was another girl sitting at the table. Probably 10 or 11, small frame, big eyes, freckles. She waved. "Hi. I'm Talia. My daughter," my dad said, pulling out a chair for me. "Your sister." The word hit strange in my chest. "Sister. Half-sister," I mumbled automatically. Alyssa gave a quiet look but didn't correct me. We ate dinner together, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was part of something. Not a prop. Not an afterthought. Just part of a family. Later that night, my dad and I sat in his study. It was a cozy room with books lining the walls and a fireplace flickering gently. He poured himself a scotch, offered me a soda, and sat down across from me. "Tell me everything," he said. And I did. I told him everything. The way Mom changed. How she started leaving me behind more and more. How Richard and his kids slowly replaced me in her life. How she told me I'd figure it out like I was some stray animal she didn't know what to do with. I told him I didn't even feel angry, just empty. Like something had been scraped out of me. He listened. Really listened. No interruptions. No sudden reactions. Just quiet, steady presence. "She always wanted to climb higher," he said eventually, looking into his glass. "That was part of what drove us apart. She couldn't settle. Always chasing something better, a better house, a better car, a better man." He looked at me. But she didn't realize she already had the best thing right in front of her. I swallowed hard. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is for you. It's all the paperwork I filed when I tried to fight for custody. Letters I wrote. Court transcripts. I kept them all." I opened it, hands trembling. My name was everywhere. Pages and pages of documents I'd never seen. He had fought. He had tried. I looked up at him, eyes burning. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want you to hate her," he said quietly. "I thought it would hurt you more to know. So I let her take you. I thought she'd at least take care of you." I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight. "She took everything from me, Rowan. But I never stopped waiting for you." The next few weeks were strange. Not bad, just strange. I started school in Aspen, and it was a world away from my old one. Smaller classes, kids who drove better cars than most adults, teachers who actually knew your name. I didn't fit in at first. I didn't try to. But Talia helped more than she knew. She'd wait for me after school, make dumb jokes at dinner, drag me into movie nights with Alyssa and Dad like I'd always been there. Slowly, the edges softened. And somewhere in the middle of all that, something in me started to heal. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because my father didn't just rescue me. He filed for full custody. And the day my mother got back from Santorini, she found my room empty, and a legal notice waiting on the kitchen counter. I don't know what I imagined when she walked back into our old house in Richmond. Maybe that she'd toss her designer sunglasses onto the kitchen counter and sigh dramatically about jet lag. Maybe she'd yell when she saw my room empty, maybe she'd call Richard, or maybe she'd just pour herself a glass of wine and pretend none of it ever happened. But what really happened? She found a stack of legal documents, and her jaw hit the floor. My father's legal team didn't waste time. He'd sent the notice the day after I arrived in Aspen. Not just custody filings, oh no, that was just the start. There were also documents requesting an investigation by Child Protective Services, not to punish her, just to show the court what she'd done. That she'd deliberately abandoned a minor at an international airport without a plan, without a guardian, without consent. Every call, every receipt, every record of her little Santorini adventure while her only child was left behind, it was all laid out neatly in the paperwork. And my father didn't stop there. He knew how she operated. She loved reputation. She loved being the woman who climbed the social ladder from a small-town decorator to someone rubbing elbows with millionaires. She loved her little circles, book clubs, charity events, interior design showcases in Richmond and beyond. She lived for appearances. So my father used that. He'd hired a very discreet PR consultant, someone who knew exactly how to leak information in a way that didn't look like it came from us. The local gossip blogs started picking it up first. Interior designer allegedly abandoned son at airport while vacationing with wealthy boyfriend. It snowballed from there. A local news outlet did a quiet piece on parental neglect in affluent families, referencing her only indirectly, but by then, everyone already knew. Deborah tried to control the narrative, of course. She called me, left voicemails with that same over-the-top voice she used to use when she wanted to guilt me into doing chores. "Rowan, sweetheart, this is all a big misunderstanding. I didn't abandon you, I just thought it would be a better environment for everyone. You're making me look like a monster." I didn't answer. Not once. She called my father. He didn't answer either. His lawyer did. She sent a letter, handwritten, as if that would make it more sincere. "You're breaking my heart, Rowan. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you. And this is how you repay me?" I read it once, tore it in half, and threw it in the fireplace. She started losing clients. Quietly, at first, appointments canceled, projects postponed. But in the design world, reputation is everything. One whisper can end a career. No one wanted to be associated with the woman who ditched her son for a vacation. Her calendar emptied out. Her phone stopped ringing. Richard, from what I heard, didn't stick around either. Apparently, he didn't like the attention. Said she'd brought unnecessary drama into his life. Word was, he moved on pretty quickly, some real estate agent in Charleston or something. When I found that out, I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction. Just a clean emptiness. Like the last piece of a puzzle finally clicking into place. She tried to show up in Aspen once. Actually flew there. I saw her car from the window before she even rang the bell. I didn't go to the door. Alyssa answered instead. She stood there, calm and composed, as Deborah started her performance. "I just want to speak to my son. Just 5 minutes, I'm still his mother." Alyssa didn't yell. She didn't argue. She just looked her square in the face and said, "You gave up that right the moment you left him at the airport." Then she closed the door. I watched her car drive away from the window, slower than it had arrived. That was the last time I ever saw her in person. Life moved forward after that, in the way it does when you stop dragging around the weight of people who never really loved you right. I started feeling lighter. More grounded. I got closer with Talia. She'd sneak into my room late at night with popcorn and ask me about school, music, books. Alyssa became a second mother to me, not by force, not by trying to replace anything, but just by being present, steady, and kind in a way I hadn't experienced before. And my father. He became more than just a rescue mission. He became my anchor. The man who showed up when no one else would, who fought silently for years when I didn't even know it. We celebrated my 16th birthday with a quiet dinner, just the four of us. No big party, no showy gifts, just warmth, laughter, and stories. Dad handed me a small box. Inside was a watch. Not expensive, not flashy. But engraved on the inside was a single line, "You figured it out." I looked at him across the table. "You remembered?" He nodded. I'll never forget. Years passed. I graduated from high school in Aspen, went on to study law at the University of Virginia, close enough to the past to face it, far enough to leave it behind. I interned with a legal aid firm, focusing on cases involving neglected or abandoned minors. Kids like me. Kids who didn't have a plane waiting for them or a father who could drop everything to come running. I made it my mission to fight for them. Eventually, I opened my own firm. Small, humble, but relentless. My mother's name came up a few times over the years, whispers about her trying to get her business back on track, moving from city to city. Always trying to outrun the shadow of what she did. But nothing ever stuck. The whispers always followed. She sent one last letter when I was 26. I opened it, this time. It was short. "I'm sorry. I was selfish. I didn't know what I was doing. I hope one day you'll find it in your heart to forgive me." I didn't write back.